Hello there. Welcome back to my channel, Snips by Kelly. I'm Kelly, and today I have a 2-page fall themed layout with a pocket card design. We're going to be using the Autumn to Remember Scrapbooking Workshop Kit, which has a great 12 by 12 sticker sheet, 2 sheets of punch-out die cuts that are fall themed that are going to make great embellishments on the pages. We have a set of craft punch-out die cut embellishments with extra title opportunities, leaves, and all kinds of bits that are going to add interest to our pages. There's some coordinating cardstock included, 4 specialty pattern papers that are one-sided, as well as 6 two-sided pattern papers. Now, the 4 specialty papers are exclusive to this kit. You can't get these specialty papers in the pattern paper and sticker sheet or in any other kits, just in this one. 2 wood grain, 1 early espresso pattern, and a great stripe. You can see the 2-sided pattern papers. Now I'm actually going to scrap using a recipe. I'm a fall foodie and I kind of nest in the fall where I just love to cook. I love to bake, and we often have at the ranch big crews of guys who need warmed up. And so I do a lot of soups, and cheeseburger soup is a fall favorite of my family, and I always know that fall is here when the soups come out. And here I'm making a wonderful thick creamy roux that I'm going to add to my soup, and I thought what a great thing to document with the recipe, and maybe using a crisscross pocket card would be a great way to incorporate the recipe into my layout. Now here's a layout design that I created for a workshop about 4.5 years ago called Stitch Together. And it has this cute pocket card on it, but I do first want to show you how I customized this recipe. So I've linked into the description. When you click more, you'll see in the description Canva, a customizable Canva recipe where I was able to add some extra words, a title, and the recipe itself. So let me get a little bit bigger. So I talk in the little comment section about how this is a fan favorite of my family, that I make it at family gatherings, and the whole recipe. But I want to be able to pull the recipe out. So it's customizable, that you can put graphics in there, but I actually put a real photo in the upper right and in the lower left to customize this recipe. And then I actually just printed it on cardstock. So I've linked in the description the pin from Pinterest and how to get to this free printable and how to customize that on Canva. So you can choose how you want to do that. Now here's the similar style to the crisscross pocket card, and I created this for my October Stamp It Up kit, which is a free bonus kit that people earn for placing a minimum order on my shop site. I love the crisscross pocket card, but I think we could just make a deeper one, just like I did on the Stitched Together layout that I created about 4.5 or 5 years ago. So, oh, so sorry about the autofocus here. I have a 4 by 12 Cajun Craze piece of cardstock, and I have scored it at 4 and again at 8. We're going to do some additional cutting on that, and we're going to make the crisscross pocket. So we're going to cut from score line to corner and score line to corner so that the crisscross folds inward and crosses over each other. We're going to decorate it with a little bit of pattern paper as well. So I'm just lining up the score line and the tip in the trough of the cutter, and then I'm going to flip it over on the opposite side and line up the score line with the tip or the point, line that up in the trough, and slice. And that's going to actually make the bulk of the hard work. It's easy to make that cute crisscross card. Now I've cut my recipe card to 3.5 by 5. Now I'm going to cut a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 scrap of white just to show you what we're going to do, because at this point in the video I have no idea what colors or patterns I'm going to want to use on the front of the crisscross card. But when you cut a 3 3/4 by 3 3/4 square, cut it on a diagonal, you'll get the perfect pieces to fit on the front of that crisscross pocket card. We're also going to make a belly band and a decorative band for that. Now I've cut an 11.5 by 11.5 scallop square on Cajun Craze, and then I believe this is, I'll have to double check this, the stitched frame I also cut on the Cricut, and I believe it's 10 1/4 by 10 1/4. It could be 10.5, but I'll post that in the description. And I'm thinking that I'm going to use the Busy Leaf Hero paper in the back, but I'm actually trying it out here with that Early Espresso brown graph. I think that's really cool also. So I kind of envision a similar layout to my Stitch Together layout. And one of the, the things that I love to do is repurpose my designs. So I will use them over and over. In fact, I used a very similar modified design like this without the pocket card on my most recent Seasons of the Green and Gold workshop. And I love repurposing them. They're never next to each other in the albums. They're usually completely different color schemes, completely different years. And I also modify them and change them up with different embellishments. And I think it's a great way to repurpose some of your favorite designs. Now I've gutted this Busy Leaf paper at 1 inch by cutting from 1 inch to 11 inches all the way around in a square. I'm going to add some liquid adhesive, and then I'm going to add my scalloped frame on the back. Now, in hindsight, what I will be doing, because this is going to be part of my my November offerings, I'm working on my November workshops now. So I will have an autumn November workshop for Simply Scrappin' and an autumn November workshop for Sparkle and Shine. And this will be part of my Sparkle and Shine workshop. And because I'm adding the Sweet Days of Autumn or Autumn to Remember coordinating cardstock, I only get 2 sheets of Cajun Craze. So I will be gutting that Cajun Craze frame so that I can use every extra piece, but I didn't gut it for this. I just wasn't thinking when I was doing the video. Now I'm not going to put the stitched frames in place because I have a tendency to want to pop those up, and I'm going to decide about that. So I'm looking at some of the pattern papers. We're going to make the crisscross elements of the base. We're going to make triangles, and I feel like the let's see, crushed curry paper here is really similar to my Fiesta Ware bowl and some of the other yellows that are in the background. So I'm making a 9.5 by 9.5 inch square, and I'm going to measure, actually just use my straight edge from my T ruler and make a light pencil line all the way down the center. Now I do have a Carl cutter that I could put this on and I wouldn't have to draw a line, but that is long enough. But because the paper trimmer isn't long enough to cut on a diagonal, I'm actually just going to draw the line, fussy cut that with a regular scissors. Then I'm going to put it back on the paper trimmer, line the point up in the trough, and make 2 smaller triangles. And these are going to make the triangles. Now, I don't actually need 4 of the crushed curry, but I wasn't sure at this point in the video. I end up using 2 of the crushed curry triangles, but we have some other ways to use up the crushed curry triangle. We're going to fussy cut some pieces out of the background. And so that will make a great triangle there, and we're going to have 3 more triangles, and we just need to decide on the pattern paper. Now, our new double-sided pattern paper or cardstock is two-toned, so it has a light and the dark. So I could use a light side of crushed curry and the dark side or true side of crushed curry, but I also want to incorporate patterns. Now, this leaf pattern has an interior leaf vein that is pointing upward, so I do have to be careful angle so that the leaves are going in the right direction. So I can use the back green side for some of the triangles, and then I can actually use the leaf side for some of the triangles. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to create a 9.5-inch square, and I'm going to do the same thing, cut those on a diagonal and get 4 pattern paper squares out of it. I'm going to use 2 of the green side back and 2 of the Cajun Craze back or fronts, and then that way I can use just the sides that have the leaves going upward. Now I need one more pattern, but I don't really want to waste a whole 9.5 by 9.5 on another pattern to just get 2 triangles out. So I contemplate using 2 of the crushed curry, but I really want another pattern. So instead of cutting a square, I think I can just use a little less of the paper by cutting that on a diagonal and getting 2 of the right size triangles. You could fussy cut around them, however you want to do that. That leaves you the most pattern paper left over. My Sparkle and Shine workshops are 12 pages, so I really need to stretch the materials. So it seems like I'm being chintzy, but I always gut things. I always find ways to use the least amount of pattern paper to get what I want without sacrificing the design. So as you can see, this is beautiful as it is. I love using these triangle designs. I've used them over and over. I really, really love them. And I think it's a decorative element itself, even though it's the background and some of that is covered. I think that's all you need, is just a beautiful background like that. So I'm sort of figuring out, I have the soup boiling, I have the wonderful roux, I have adding the finishing touches and shredding the cheese. And I really think it's important to talk about the roux. There are lots of young people that don't even know how to make a basic gravy, or they don't know how to make roux for soup. And I think it's really important to have them learn recipes from you that teach them those basic skills. I'm not putting down if you're one that uses gravy packets. I have done that. I have done that in a pinch, but there's nothing that compares to homemade gravy or a roux that you add to a soup. So I've actually made 1/4 inch frames out of Cajun Craze. So I have a 2 4x6 verticals that have a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. I have 3 3x4 that have 3 1/4 by 4 1/4, but definitely want to show you the difference in adding that very vanilla inside. It just makes all the difference in the world to do an 1/8 inch frame inside. So now I have to decide what we're going to use as the patchwork for the pocket, the crisscross pocket card. So I'm going to take this leftover triangle. I'm going to cut it at 3 3/4 and again at 3 3/4. Now it leaves an odd piece in the upper corner, but that's okay. We only need one side. So we're going to cut that in half and get one of our triangles. Now I would use both sides of the hero leaf paper and do 3 3/4 and 3 3/4, but then the leaves would be upside down. So that's kind of the problem. If all of the patterns are only going in one direction, you have to make sure that when you cut things that they're face up, right? So hopefully we'll be getting more patterns where some of the patterns are upside down, some of them are sideways, and that really, really helps a lot. So that gives us our 2 pocket decorations. So we're going to put the crushed curry triangle on the left side and the busy hero leaf paper on the right side. And that's going to really decorate the pocket. The reason I waited till this part to make the top square is because I wasn't sure what pattern was going to go on what pattern. So until I did the background, I wouldn't have wanted to use the same patterns on the pockets that are going to go under the crisscross pocket card in the background. Now I'm also going to, I don't want to just put my recipe in there loose and it needs a border, but I want to be able to pull the recipe out and cut a slit in my page protector and pull the recipe out with a tab. So I've created a 3 3/4 by 5 1/4 Cajun Craze cardstock piece that I'm going to mount in the base of the crisscross pocket card. Then that's going to give a really nice edge to my recipe, even though it's not going to be adhered down because the recipe is on the back. Now I could have printed 2 recipe cards and had that second side on a separate sheet, but I think this will work out great because the belly band that we're going to create is going to tighten that, so that recipe card will stay where I want it to be, and also the tab on the top, when we add the tab on the top, will help as well. So I have a 3/4 by 11.5 inch Cajun Craze strip, and I'm just going to fold it. You could score it, but I'm just going to fold it. I folded it around, and then I know the belly band is going to fit around the crisscross pocket card perfectly. It's not only going to act as something that holds the crisscross card together, because the crisscross card has adhesive on the crisscross portion, but it's going to be a decorative element. So I've taken a sticker from the sticker sheet. There are 2 1-inch stickers on the sticker sheet, and I cut one of those stickers in half at a 1/2 inch, and then I cut a 5.5 inch piece off of that. And again, it seems like I'm being chintzy, but I really want to reserve lots of pieces of stickers to be able to use on all 12 pages that I'm going to be creating for my November workshop here. So now you can see that really helps. It has that great Cajun Craze border. It has the belly band that will decorate. I'm going to pull out this tab here. Now you can add any kind of a sticker on here. You could add a round circle on the top, any kind of tab. You could add just a rectangle if you don't have the keeping tabs die, but I'm going to use the keeping tabs die, put that on top of the recipe card so that you have something to hold on to that can stick right out of the page protector, and you can pull on that tab and pull the recipe card out if you want to look at that. And so originally I was going to put the picture of me cooking over on the left, but I don't actually want to cover up the pot of soup that's on the lower left of the picture of me cooking. So I'm going to switch those around, and I'm going to put 2 horizontal 3x4s that way, and then have the vertical over on the left. Now, I just wanted to show you that you can put these up and down and symmetrical. Some people absolutely can't stand when their photos are wonky and they really want everything to be straight. So you can straighten everything out on both pages if you want to. I am a little wonky myself, so I kind of like having them a little wonky and overlapping each other. And then we'll do some little fillers and some decorations in the little valleys there. So I'm looking for a title. I love the give thanks. That's wonderful. Giving thanks for food, but it's a little large. I like grateful for the moment. None of them kind of fit super well, but I have lots of great titles like Oh Blessed Day is really, really cute. Autumn Days is really cute. And this is really an autumn day. It's a fall day. I am in love with cooking in the fall. I love to heat my house up with baking and cooking in the fall. And I am just a mess on this day. I've got my hair up in a messy bun. I don't have makeup, a very little makeup on. But this is me, and this is what my kids will remember, and my husband will remember, just puttering around in the kitchen and making some of our fall favorites. I have another, I have a lot. I love chicken and wild rice soup. My family loves lasagna soup is always a hit. This cheeseburger soup is always a hit. Of course, we make a lot of stew. There's a lot of soups that I make in the fall. Soup is just the guys are cold when they come in from working cows or feeding. And then when the family comes, I usually make a double batch. I do adjust my recipe, so I talk about that in the recipe. I will link my recipe in the description and talk about the changes that I make to the recipe. So I did fussy cut the back of days with a scrap of Cajun Craze. I do like that. We're going to add some treatments with some inking here, but I'm kind of experimenting to the left, to the right, to the left, to the left, to the right. right, to the right, in the center. And I think that I would love to use some of these punch outs. I like this little tag. I think that's great. There's so many great little pieces that go with the background colors that I can use to embellish. I do need something on top of the belly band to decorate. I was thinking about the porcupine, fussy cutting the porcupine out, or maybe the bunny, or maybe using the circled deer, but I think I have some other fall ones that are going to lend to the animals a little bit more than the food. So to me, this speaks fall. I just want some fall leaves. I think I'm going to pull out these punch out leaves. I love them. They're large, they're great. You can toggle things in and out. You could leave the tips of them loose. And I like things that intertwine. And a lot of people will say to me, I don't know about clustering. I'm not that great about clustering. And I try to think of clusters as arrangements, like floral arrangements. Even if there's circles, squares, tags, twine, whatever are in these clusters, think about layering them and overlapping, popping some up, keeping some flush. And so many times people overthink their clusters because the clusters are just like layers of things that weave in and out of each other that can create dimension and elements. I do love these wooden die cuts, these faux wooden die cuts. And I call them craft because they're kind of a craft texture. They're thicker than cardstock, but not as thick as, say, an acrylic shape. And so I love them. And they're like faux wood, kind of. And they have a little bit of a grain texture to them. You can ink them. There's lots of things that you can do with them. So I'm adding a few little leaves and experimenting. I like the 2 hearts over on the left bottom. I like adding few little extra elements of leaves. So you could have some paper leaves. You could have your craft die cut leaves. Some people call this paperboard. And so if you're familiar with that term, maybe that's an easier term for you to understand the thickness of these. And so I'm just kind of looking here. I'm getting happier. It's getting a little more full. And then partway in here, I realized that I put out my supply list for my October, November, December, and January workshops because we had 4 new workshops that dropped here on October 1st. But we had free shipping in July. And my paper crafters were like, can you give us a hint what the main ingredients are going to be so that we can get them during free shipping day? And so I put out a printout for my paper crafters that had what ingredients I plan to use. And it was hard for me because sometimes I just like to decide as I'm creating. So I had to really think about what I wanted to use in my workshops. And so I do realize that I added some really gorgeous gold leaves. And I also added some druzy, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, DRUSY gems, some bling. And so you're going to see me add those elements here, but I don't realize until I'm about done with the layout that those were part of my supply list. And I was so tickled. I was like, yay! I'm so excited I can add to my clusters using those things. So I'm again going to back some of these embellishments. So I backed the little craft hearts up in the upper right corner with some crushed curry. I'm going to back this little arrow and sentiment die cut piece with crushed curry. And backing these elements just really adds. Could you just put it on there as it is? Of course you could. But it's all the little tiny things that add up. You're not even sure sometimes when you're looking at something what it is that's really catching your eye. But it's truly the combinations of all the little details that really only take a few minutes to do that really add. Backing things, popping things up, layering things, adding a little bit of twine or some gems to things are all the details that make all the difference in the world in elevating your pages. So if you feel really good about a base page, just do some of those little added elements to elevate it just a tiny bit and you'll be really happy. So I'm actually pulling out pecan pie. If you're coming from close to my heart, it reminds me of toffee. I used toffee for everything, for all of my dirtying up and all of my distressing. So I'm just using a mini ink blending tool, and I'm just distressing all the edges of the leaves, the edges of my die cut pieces, and even, yes, the craft punch outs. I think dirtying up the edges with the pecan pie really gives it that fall look. Honestly, we have a few green leaves left where I live, but not many. And so the brighter green leaves, even though there's a little wash on it, weren't exactly, screaming fall to me, although green goes well, but you need a little bit of orange and a little bit of red and a little bit of brown, because around here we kind of have brown fall. I wish we had a New England fall, but our fall can be pretty in the Black Hills where I live, but dirtying up the leaves is a little more realistic for my area. It also makes those leaves look a little bit more authentic and rustic, and it gives it a really rich color. So I'm doing that and doing that on all of those leaves. I think I do, yep, all of the die cut pieces, the little punch out tags, the punch out leaves, and the craft pieces, and it really, really, really adds. Even on a little tiny heart, you'd be amazed at how much it adds. I'm going to go ahead and do the tab, because what we do to one, we want to do to the other. So if you're going to use a technique on a page, it's best to use that technique throughout the page. So here's where I find that I use these gorgeous golden leaf embellishments. They're kind of like a mesh net. They have a really interesting feel to them. Now, these probably for some people feel like they're too elegant for a layout like this. But what I love is something I call leather and lace. I love to take really beautiful elements and add those to rustic elements or everyday elements, and sort of combine the two of those is really a big style that I have. Like, I do that in decorating my home even. I'm a junk gypsy, and I find junk from all over. And we're going to find some junk in a drawer. We're going to find some old twine. We're going to ink up these gorgeous leaves. Yes, they actually ink up. It's very subtle. You can't see it as much on camera as you can in real time, but hopefully you can see how it darkened the edges of those mesh leaves. It's such a really delicate golden weave, but when I add those to the paper, ooh, I love that. I really, really love that. It's just another step up, and I don't think it looks out of place to have an elegant leaf underneath a paper leaf, and to add some really, what do you want to call it, sparkly gems to outdoor twine. I think that is that leather and lace technique where it really, really works well together, where you're putting embellishments that wouldn't necessarily go together, and it makes this really awesome combination. I really, really love that. I love that little twinge of gold. So here's my cheat sheet. And I didn't look at my supply list or my cheat sheet before I started creating. I just jumped right in. So I'm so happy I remembered that I put that on the supply list and that my paper crafters got those. They don't always get all of the supply list at once. They might spread the supply list across the 4 months, but it's kind of nice for them to be able to know what I'm going to use ahead of time. And if they trust me and they know they're going to love what I make, they can grab those up when we have free shipping day and save some dollars. I always want to save my paper crafters some dollars and give them the most bang for their buck. So I'm adding some of these, and if anyone out there wants to correct me, I do not know how to say this. D-R-U-S-Y, druzy. These are druzy embellishments. So I'm adding those, and I love that. And then I decide to add the little leather technique, the leather and lace technique, and add the twine. So I'm going to add some twine to the tag, and I just, bunched it up in about 4 strands, put it through the hole on the tag, pulled the ends back through, and trimmed those off. And then I say, I've already got the twine out. I've added the twine element to the tag. And so I'm going to wrap it in 3 circles, add a glue dot to the bottom, and then poke it underneath a few little areas. Now, the first one I poke above the golden leaves, and I do end up changing that and kind of weave it under and over the leaves. I think it's more, it's prettier when it's intertwined underneath, and I really love that. When it's just kind of peeking out instead of chunked on top, if that makes sense. So I'm going to make, I think, 3 more of those, and it works out really well if you just press the ends into your glue dot, roll that glue dot around your fingers a little bit to connect those strands, trim it off, and then a lot of times I'll put it on a piercing tool, and then I stick my piercing tool into the glue dot, and then it allows me to just tuck that element under. And then when I'm tucking it under this, I realize I didn't even adhere those down yet. They were just kind of laying there, not in place. So I have to adhere those down and then tuck the twine under. Loving that. I absolutely love that. It adds so much, and it's such a little teeny tiny thing to do. So I'm going to do 2 more of those, I believe, 1 more for sure, and I'm going to add those underneath those 2 additional leaf pieces. Not sure what I'm doing here. Sometimes I forget that I'm recording, and then I'm like, what am I doing? Okay. Oh, I see. I'm adding my little, journaling here. I'm just going to put the date because I did most of the journaling on my recipe card, and love that. You could journal more, do more of a story, but I did put my story on the recipe card, and I'm getting happy. I'm really getting happy. I hope you enjoy all of these little techniques and these tips and tricks, and you can stay tuned. I think that this full 12-page workshop will debut around November 1st, if we're lucky, maybe at the end here of October, and it will be my Autumn to Remember Sparkle and Shine 12-page workshop. I can't wait to see what you do with this. Hit like, subscribe, the notification bell, and shoot me a comment and let me know what you thought. Thanks for watching, and tune in again right here on Snips by Kelly.